معظم القاسم. وثاني مرة اجى جماعة داعش دخلوا على
Hey! Somebody freaking shoot your gun! Oh, yeah! Red! Good!
Felt an issue was so important, so threatening, that it warranted talking directly with you, the American people. All of us agree that the gravest domestic threat
الآن لابد أن نؤكد للعالم أجمع أننا والله Hey, you want me to get him, sir?
The terror weapons that are now being used quite extensively in what is by far the leading, most prominent and extensive terrorist campaign in the world.
On September 11, 2001, the United States watched in horror as two airliners crashed into the Twin Towers and brought the two Colossus buildings down. This ultimately killed 3,000 innocent people. The planes were hijacked by Islamic jihadists belonging to a Middle Eastern terrorist group called Al-Qaeda, or the Base in English. The aftermath of the 9/11 attacks reshaped the world and aspects of global politics, triggering a 20-year war on terror in Afghanistan and Iraq. The violence in the Middle East didn't start there. This video will delve into the origins of the U.S. military's involvement in the Middle East after 9/11, the cultural, social, and economic implication of these involvements, and how it shaped the U.S. and Middle East forever. Most importantly, however, this report will explore the story of those trying times and examine how the world has changed in the years since. Many young American connoisseurs of history like me are often left scratching their heads when hearing our parents talk about those days. Most of us weren't around when that happened, and if we were infants. The question that is always asked and never answered is why? Why us? Let's go back to the late 80s and early 90s, an underrated decade in terms of global politics. The country of Yugoslavia fell to pieces. The Berlin Wall crumbled, and the Soviet Union finally dissolved after 70 long years of ruthless communist authoritarianism. Most important to the context of this current subject, Iraqi forces led by the tyrant Saddam Hussein invaded the small country of Kuwait. Kuwait lies southeast of Iraq and north of Saudi Arabia and borders the Persian Gulf, hence the name of the conflict, the Gulf War. In short, Iraq owed a large chunk of change to Kuwait for loaning money to them to beat Iran in a war. Saddam Hussein saw Iran as a mutual enemy of Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, as well as the rest of the Arab states, and he thought that Kuwait should forgive his debt and fix the shattered economy. The small coastal country thought the opposite. Let's be honest, $14 billion isn't something to just be nipped in the bud. Kuwait demanded to be repaid, and they destabilized the world's oil industry. OPEC, or Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, still to this day sets limits on how much oil a country can produce. If a country produces over the quota, it can drive the prices of barrels down and hurt other oil exporting countries, like Iraq. According to TNSR, in November of 1998, OPEC raised Kuwait's quota from 1.5 million barrels per day, but production was repeatedly as high as 1.9 million barrels per day in January 1990 and 2 million barrels per day in February. Whether or not Kuwait did this to arm-pin Iraq into paying them, blatant greed, or just pure ignorance is up for debate, but one thing is for sure, it pushed Iraq into a corner and into drastic measures. With no other option, Iraq declared war on Kuwait and invaded the country on August 2nd, 1990. 4 days later, the UN imposed economic sanctions on Iraq, and on the 7th, the U.S. executes Operation Desert Shield. Coalition forces are deployed in Saudi Arabia to prevent further aggression. The takeover of Kuwait took less than 2 days. On the morning of August 2nd, with 100,000 men, tanks, and air support, Iraqi forces crossed the Kuwait border. Within hours, major cities burned, and the Kuwaiti military was crushed, with the royal family fleeing to Saudi Arabia. After months of gathering strength, the U.S. and 37 other countries were ready to fight. Hussein had broken international laws by forcefully annexing Kuwait, and the world feared what would happen to the global economy if a ruthless dictator had control of 20% of the world's oil. The U.S. mustered a terrifying amount of munitions and firepower during the time before the takeback of Kuwait. Desert Shield turned to Desert Storm, and on January 17, 1991, the U.S. launched a major air campaign against Iraqi-occupied Kuwait. Iraq stood little to no chance against U.S. and coalition firepower and was forced to retreat. The U.S. bombed Iraqi forces withdrawing in vehicles on Highway 80. Thousands of Iraqi soldiers were killed, and sadly civilians too. The stretch of asphalt became known as the Highway of Death. If you've played Modern Warfare 2019, you play the mission where you see the Highway of Death. Anyway, side note. A day later, a tank battle between U.S. forces and the Iraqi Republican Guard erupted. The fight was named the Battle of 73 Easting because of its coordinate location and is hailed as the last great tank battle of the 20th century. I don't know why a tank battle would be great, but that's just what they called it. On February 27th, Kuwait was liberated and a ceasefire was declared the next day. 383 American troops were killed, and sources estimate Iraqi militant casualties at 30,000. It was a swift war, but set the stage for a long, grueling 20 years for the United States and the rest of the world. In fear of future aggression, to secure no-fly zones over Iraq, and to protect a large aggregate of oil, the U.S. kept troops in Saudi Arabia. The country was home to two of Islam's holiest sites, Mecca and Medina. One of the pillars of Islam is to make a pilgrimage to Mecca, and many Muslims were furious about the occupation. This and economic sanctions on Iraq fueled a deep resentment to the U.S. All they needed was someone to guide them. Osama bin Laden was a Saudi-born millionaire and the heir to a wealthy construction magnate. He joined the Mujahideen in Afghanistan in the 80s and fought the Soviets. For this, people saw him as a great warrior. He founded the terrorist group Al-Qaeda in 1988 to wage a global jihad or Islamic crusade. Like most of his Saudi brothers and sisters, he was angry with the U.S. for occupying the holy city of Mecca. He also blamed the U.S. for the economic turmoil of Iraq and the hardships of their citizens were facing. In August of 1998, Al-Qaeda bombed U.S. embassies, and forgive if anyone's watching this is from Africa, I'm sorry. Nairobi, Kenya, and Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. I'm sure they're beautiful countries. The explosions killed 224 people, including 12 Americans. According to the FBI, in the aftermath of the attacks, over 900 FBI agents alone and many more FBI employees traveled overseas to assist in the recovery of evidence and the identification of the victims at the bomb sites and to track down the perpetrators. The perpetrators were Mohammed Sadiq Odeh and Mohammed Rashad Duad al-Owalali. They were arrested after 20 days. In October of 2000, Al-Qaeda suicide bombers steered a small boat into the U.S. warship called the Cole while it was refueling. The blast ripped a 1,600 square foot hole in its hull and left 17 sailors dead and 39 wounded. These events, while tragic, were thwarted by what happened a year later. Now me, I'm 20 years old. 22 years old. Just turned 22 years old, sorry. And I remember seeing, watching the 9/11 attacks at school every September 11th every year. So, and that always bothered, that bothered a lot of people. Some people couldn't stomach it. Some people still to this day can't stomach it. So, if this kind of stuff bothers you, then be advised. If you want to click away, I understand.
Baby, you have to listen to me carefully. I'm on a plane that's been hijacked. I'm on the plane. I'm calling from the plane. I want to tell you I love you.
A plane crashed into Loma 4.
Looks like it went in the Pentagon.
On the morning of September 11, 2001, fear struck the hearts of every American. 2 planes hit the World Trade Center, 1 hit the Pentagon, and 1 crashed into Shanksville, Pennsylvania, due to the passengers fighting back. Bin Laden wanted to target key infrastructure locations. The Twin Towers were home to a hub of international businesses, finance, and trade. Tens of thousands of people worked there every day. Bin Laden thought that destroying a place of such commerce and symbolism would hurt the American economy and wound their spirits, and it did. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is one of the most well-known stock indexes in the world, and it tanked after 9/11. It was the darkest day in American history. Citizens watched with trepidation as the World Trade Center workers jumped from the towers. Firefighters fought desperately to save them, some even succumbing to the fire and smoke. The tragedy started a 20-year-long war on terror where the U.S. tried desperately to find bin Laden. Iraq and Iran. The war on terror. Intelligence reports led to the conclusion that bin Laden was being sheltered by a terrorist group called the Taliban in Afghanistan. In 2001, the U.S. military started their investigation operations in Afghanistan. Their objective was to topple the Taliban and find bin Laden. They searched the country, leaving no stone unturned, but to no avail. In 2003, the U.S. invaded Iraq, believing that Saddam Hussein had a cache of weapons of mass destruction. The Iraq War saw many grievous battles, one being the 2 battles of Fallujah, which were said to be the bloodiest battles since Vietnam. Insurgents killed 4 U.S. contractors and hung them from a bridge. In response, the U.S. Marines were deployed to retake the city in April of 2004. They were met with heavy resistance and had to fall back. The Marines went back in November during Operation Phantom Fury. This time with the U.S. Army and Iraqi forces backing them up, they went door to door, clearing every house. 90 U.S. troops died, but the city was captured, though most of it was leveled. Hussein's regime died in April of 2003 when U.S. forces captured Baghdad, the capital city of Iraq. The Iraq War is where we get the scenes from the movies. Guys kicking in doors and clearing houses. Urban combat is a military strategist's worst nightmare, and it shows. NBC News reported 4,492 U.S. service members killed in Iraq and 32,292 wounded. These numbers, I'm sure, vary. The Iraqi government took back the country in 2008, but they still face violent hardships. Operation Neptune Spear and bin Laden's death. If you've seen the movie Zero Dark 30, this is basically what happened. The U.S. apprehended several of bin Laden's key terrorists. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was captured in Pakistan in 2003. He revealed bin Laden's plans and al-Qaeda's operations. The chief of operations for al-Qaeda, Abdul Zabadah, was captured and interrogated. I'm sorry if I'm butchering these names. I'm a white guy from America, but I love my Islamic brothers. He was believed to be bin Laden's right-hand man and to have knowledge on bin Laden's whereabouts. Sadly, he didn't know where he was, but he did give crucial information on al-Qaeda's network of countries. Finally, in 2007, U.S. intelligence tracked a guy named Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti. He was one of bin Laden's couriers. The CIA tracked him down to a suspicious compound with abnormally tall walls in Abbottabad, Pakistan. After more terrorists were interrogated, bin Laden's home was pinned at the compound. In 2010, President Barack Obama authorized Operation Neptune Spear, the neutralization of bin Laden. The raid on bin Laden's compound would take place on the night of May 1st, 2011. SEAL Team 6 loaded onto Black Hawk helicopters and flew from Jalalabad, Afghanistan, to his house in Pakistan. Once they got there, one of the helicopters crashed in the compound due to warm air turbulence. None of the SEALs were injured. They got out and cleared the first floor, killing bin Laden's courier. They moved to the second floor and shot his son, Khalid. Osama bin Laden was found on the third floor. He was surprised and shocked. Robert J. O'Neill was the Navy SEAL who took his life. The terror lord that had killed thousands of Americans and took 10 years to find. O'Neill shot him twice. The hunt for Osama bin Laden was over. His body was dumped into the Arabian Sea. After the death of Osama bin Laden, many Americans have felt that the mission was over and that the U.S. should stop spending resources in the Middle East. Due to a disgruntled populace and overspending, the U.S. started to gradually pull troops back. In 2014, the U.S. launched drone strikes on ISIS during Operation Inherent Resolve to deter recurring terrorism and violence. This led to the deaths of Middle Eastern civilians, squandering the popularity of the country's involvement even more. In 2021, under the presidency of Joe Biden, all U.S. forces were formally pulled back, ending America's longest war. A total of $8 trillion were spent fighting the war on terror, and a total of 900,000 soldiers and civilians lost their lives. Though bin Laden and Hussein are long gone, violence, homelessness, and economic instability still fester in the region. The world has changed a lot, especially the U.S. The TSA have significantly increased their security measure in airports, hoping to stop another attack like 9/11. Full body scanners, liquid limits, all go back to that sad September day. The USA Patriot Act increases public surveillance, so much so that the line between security and privacy is fading. U.S. foreign policy has also seen drastic change. We cannot afford another long war, so the government uses drone strikes, special forces, and proxy allies instead of large U.S. deployments. The war on terror has influenced the way we manage conflicts in Ukraine, Syria, and China. The Middle East stays the same. Violence and fear still plague the land. In the end, was it all worth it?